we're looking at, as the name suggests, credit and borrowing, we're looking at credit cards. Okay? Now, before we get to the exercise, and I'm going to help you interpret and read some like credit card statements and that kind of thing. If there is one thing only that you get out of studying credit cards, okay, it's how to use credit cards properly, which is namely not for credit. Okay, now you're like, they're called credit cards? Well, let me explain. Right? Here's CBA. I've only put them up because I've done a lot of dealings with them in the past. Dolomites, right? They just get you in and then you stop. Now, what I want to have a look at is we've been talking about like borrowing and interest rates and so on. So if you have a look, for example, at something like bank accounts, okay? So this is if you put some money in the bank, right? And they're going to pay you interest, okay? Now, does anyone actually know what the current interest rate is roughly for like a bank account? Anyone?
2% currently as an interest getting in, or
how much interest you receive for putting your money in the bank?
2%.
2%, okay. So let's find out. Now, obviously, this fluctuates. It fluctuates through the year, and of course, different banks and different accounts within the bank will give you slightly different. Well, 2% means 2% of $100 is not very much. 2% of $100,000 is a lot more. So the percent, well, it depends. As you'll see, it depends. So let's have a look. So you can see they offer you all these different options. Just like with your mobile phone plans, I hope this is ringing some bells, right? You have to make comparisons between things where sometimes there's numerical differences, sometimes there are qualitative differences, like it's really important to me that I have unlimited data, or it's really important to me that I have unlimited calls or whatever. It might be really important to you that I can get to ATMs, or maybe you don't really care about getting to ATMs or not, and that's a very individual thing. So if we have a look, for example, at just a savings account, and we pull up, here we go. Okay, let's go to a NetBank save. That's a pretty standard account. Okay. Now, what was the number, Gary? 2% was your.
Oh, I said like 1.9, 1.9.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, so you can have a look here.
I said 2.
You can change it. You said 2.
Now, have a look. Have a look. Read carefully. There's like asterisks and hashtags everywhere. Okay. It's like terms and conditions apply on everything. So what is this? It's a competitive introductory rate. So for the first 3 months, they're like, yeah, let's get you in the door. 2.7%, that's attractive at the moment, right? And then it'll come back to, if you want to find out more, if you click again, you'll find out what it'll actually come down to after 3 months, okay? Now, this is important, all right? Just keep this number in your head. That number will do, right? It's gonna be lower than that in the long term. Just remember that. Now, remember I said to you that credit and borrowing versus, let's just go back to, yeah. Credit and borrowing versus investing are really two sides of the same coin, okay? So if you are lending money to the bank, they're gonna pay you this amount in return. Now, if you get a credit card, then it's just happening in reverse. So you ought to expect like interest rates and all that kind of thing, they ought to be somewhat comparable. So you have a look, right? And when you see credit cards, there are two kinds, two basic categories of credit cards. There are low rate and low fee, okay? Now, think about this, right? If you are borrowing money, you want the rate to be low, not high, right? If you're investing money, you want the rate to be high because that means you get paid lots of things. This rate here is an amount you're gonna have to pay back. Does that make sense? Okay. So being that you've got a choice between low rate, low fee, the idea is if you want a low rate, if you want to reduce the amount you're gonna have to pay back, you're gonna have a high fee. Does that make sense? You have to pay for that privilege. Or alternatively, if you don't want to pay very much month to month, then you're probably gonna have a high rate to compensate for that. Does that make sense? Alternatively, most people who have credit cards, like say your parents or me, they have a free credit card because it comes along with their bank account, which is attached to like a $300,000 debt, their mortgage, right? So because you're hugely indebted to them, you're paying them all this amount of interest, so they're willing to sort of just give you a credit card. Let's have a look. We were thinking 2-3%, right? Get ready to see what's a low rate if you get a credit card. If you get a credit card, how much they're going to charge you on the money that you are borrowing from them. Oh, I need to go to here. Okay, let's have a go.
Now.
Do you see that? Hey, hold on a second. This is the low rate card, right? The low rate card, they're going to charge you Only 13.24%. That's hardly anything. Oh wait, no it's not. It's exorbitant, which is why you should never use a credit card for actual credit, for actually borrowing money. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what else can I use it for? Well, I'll explain that in a second. Before I get to that, remember I told you this is the low rate?
What's the
Well, let's
high?
have a low fee.
That's a great question. If you go to the low fee, you notice they don't say anything about the rate. They don't tell you, right? Because they highlight what's good about it, which is enjoy, no annual fee, right? If you spend, so you say, oh, I better learn more, right? Always go to learn more, okay? And when you do that,
At a glance.
and you zoom in, and you're like, oh,
Oh, hang on.
oh snap!
Yay!
That's like 1/5, right? That is 1/5, and then there's this extra bit. I'll explain this a bit more later. If you make purchases on your credit card, right? Generally speaking, think about this, right? Okay, you're at the checkout. You get your card, you tap it, right? So funds go from, now this is a credit card, right? This is borrowing money. Your money does not pay for that transaction, right? CBA's money, or Visa, or Amex, their money pays for your transaction, okay? Now it doesn't happen instantly, because they don't have to do it all the time. Usually it happens like at the end of a week, end of a month, or something like that. So basically, you've gone to Coles, you've racked up a bill, and then you tap. You have not paid for that transaction. CBA's paid for that transaction, and they're eventually going to say, hey, remember all that stuff you bought? You owe me now, because I paid for all that stuff for you, right? And if you do not pay them back in time, they will charge you this interest rate, okay? If on the other hand, what you do is you go to an ATM and you withdraw cash, right? Now you've got that in your hand, they're going to charge you more for that, because you can do more with liquid assets, with actual cash that you have in your hand.
So you don't have to pay any money if you spend under $1,000 every year.
You don't have to spend anything on fees. This is the low fee card. So if you get a low rate card, even if you spend nothing on that card, they're going to charge you a membership fee, like I don't know whatever it is, $15 a month, $30 a month, just for having the card, right? Whereas this is, they're expecting you're going to be using it, and so fine, we won't charge you a fee.